Mr. Anderson? Here. Mr. Cagle?
Here.
Mr. Heisler?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Matthias? Mr. McHale?
Here. I'll stand to pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any changes to the agenda as it's presented?
Just wanted to note, the three leaf property, topic in the Shamrock, that won't be for approval, it'll just be an update on where we're at with those two items. Other than that.
Anything else? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Great. All right, so moving on to matters, do we have any from the public? Okay, unfinished business, anything? Yeah.
No.
All right, we're gonna move on to our annual audit.
This is Courtney from Lauterbach and Amon. Team has been hard at work. Tina?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. As mentioned, my name is Courtney Moore. I am one of the audit principals at Lauterbach and Amon, and I'm here to present the April 30th, 2024 audited financial statements. Before I get started, I did want to say a huge thank you to Tina and her team for all their hard work in getting everything pulled together for the audit. Not only do they prepare for us to come on site and make requests of documents to test your trial balances, but she also helps bring it to the bound copy that you see in front of you today. So Tina, thank you so much for your help.
Thank you.
The Crystal Lake Park District is a part of the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement Award. This is a very prestigious program that requires specific things within your audit report outside of what the state requires. So there are additional things within this report, including statistical section and a couple more narratives within the report that are required for submission for this program. The Park District has received this award once again for the 2023 audit. So congratulations on receiving it once again. And we are working with the team to submit an application for the 2024 audit. And in our opinion, we believe that the audit covers all of those requirements to receive that award. The purpose of an audit is for us to perform various tests and procedures on your financial statements to ultimately form an opinion. We did give the Park District an unmodified opinion. It is also known as a clean opinion. It is the highest opinion that we can give. It states that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects, and we can rely on the internal control environment of the organization. Additionally, in our SACS 114 letter, which is our communication to all of you, those charged with governance, we note that we did not have any difficulties or disagreements with management throughout the process. So I did want to touch on just a few key financial highlights for the year. Your fund financial statements begin on page 35. If you have the bound copy in front of you. The Park District continues to have healthy fund balances within all of your funds. I always like to call out the general fund because it is the main operating fund of the Park District. And at the end of the year, your total fund balance was about $3.7 million. Of that 3.7, about 37,000 is considered non-spendable. 1.9 is considered assigned, so it was assigned for a specific purpose. And the remaining 1.7 is considered unassigned and can be used to meet the future needs of the Park District as you deem fit. You'll see that there are various non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned pieces within each of your fund balances, especially within your capital projects. So the entire amount of your fund balance in your capital projects fund is considered assigned for future project purposes. If you flip to page 39 and 40, you will see your income statement for each of these funds. So what I want to mention is, even though you see various increases and decreases within each of your specific funds, overall, when you take all of your funds and combine them, you had an increase in fund balance of about $760,000 this year. Past the financial statements are the notes to the financial statements, which really explain everything and anything you may need to know about the preceding financial statements. It's really kind of the meat and the bones. So if there is anything that you are looking to get a little bit more information on from the financial statements, the notes really explain a lot of that for you. The other document that you have in front of you is called the management letter. This is the smaller report that's not found. The management letter really outlines any policies, procedures, or anything else that may have come up throughout the audit that we wanted to bring to your attention. And what I wanted to mention was that the only recommendations within your management letter are related to GASB pronouncements. So GASB is essentially the governing board, the way your financial statements are supposed to be presented. And they come out with new pronouncements that are required to be implemented at various times. 2 of them were required to be implemented this year, so GASB 94 and 96. And there are 2 more that'll be required to be implemented next year. So we'll work with the team to get those implemented as necessary. But we don't have any new comments, and we don't have any other comments outside of those. So with all that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on the audit report, management letter.
You guys do a review of internal controls related to employee expenses, employee expense reimbursement, and credit card use?
We do walkthroughs of internal controls, so we do take a look at cash receiving, cash disbursements, payroll, financial reporting, credit cards, and we make various random selections of different transactions throughout the year, and we just kind of walk them through the general ledger, the bank account, make sure they're getting posted to the right places and being taken care of the right way. So that's the extent of what we do for internal control walkthroughs.
So you review the financial piece of it, but not the process of it.
We receive a questionnaire from the team of how the process is supposed to be. And then when we do our walkthroughs of internal controls, we compare them to those questions and what the policy is saying and making sure you guys are abiding by those.
So part of that questionnaire is the policies that govern what she's talking about.
I mean, you look at the you can take a sampling of the actual expense reimbursement
Yep.
process. You
And we
look
get a
at
copy of the
actual, like,
receipt, we get a
yeah,
copy of
yeah.
the credit card statement. Yeah, we look at all that.
I have one other question, on page 16. So the net position and the balance sheet position of the park district increased by almost 4 million, 3.8. Do you know what that's? from?
So that'll be your government-wide financial statements. So that would be pages,
That's we're talking about the balance sheet, right?
correct. So that would be pages 31 and 32 is where you would see that.
Well, I see that, I don't see it compared to last year though, so I don't know what this is, it's talking about the increase in the bottom line from last year.
The total net position, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So it's the second bullet point under
We're
financial.
roughly $4 million better. It's not due to real estate because we haven't got our real estate reappraised, right?
Right, so pages 20. Well, that's, yeah, page 20 shows your change in net position from last year to this year, kind of in a chart that can kind of help with comparing from last year to this year. It does look like there was an overall increase in unrestricted net position,
So it's,
and it said they're discussed in the following sections.
so is it mostly cash?
Yeah,
Cash, and I think that additional debt issuance you did last fiscal year.
mhm.
would accomplish that.
Well, but that's booked as a liability as well, isn't it? I mean,
But you would have received the proceeds.
we have the proceeds, but we
Mhm.
also, it's also entered as an obligation or no, is it just proceeds?
It would be a liability on the government-wide financial statements.
Well, it's a liability on the balance sheet, but we have to pay it back.
Oh, right, in the government-wide
So,
financial
so
statements.
that's not, that doesn't relate at all to the proceeds of bond issue because there's a repayment obligation.
It doesn't relate to the bottom line.
Yeah.
The wash.
So
If you look on page 21, doesn't it have exactly where those changes are occurring?
that's what I'm asking. It's revenue, it's cash. I think.
So capital grants is $1 million.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
charges for services increased, it looks like capital grants increased, property taxes increased a little bit, it looks like overall each of the, and interest increased a lot as well, so.
That's it. So it's cash. Right? Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you, Tina. Thank you.
Thanks, you know.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Hard on this.
Have it
Thank you.
outstanding.
Thank you very much.
Here.
Important.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. I'm going to make a motion to approve the voucher expenses for the month ending November 30th, 2024 in the amount of $885,831.05. The interim voucher expenses for the month ending December 31st, 2024 in the amount of $215,462.10. The treasurer's report, to accept the treasurer's report for the month ending November 30th, 2024 in the amount of $25,274,930.62. To approve the regular meeting minutes from November 21st, 2024, and approve the annual park board meeting schedule. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cable,
Yes.
Commissioner Heisler,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner McHale.
Yes. Okay. New business action items. I am going to make a motion to accept the presentation and acceptance of 2023-24 annual audit. To approve ordinance 24-25.
Reached out to David first.
Okay. Okay.
Just the audit.
I'm going to amend that to accept it as the audit, but without verification of the information in there. We don't want to see this verifying the accuracy of.
Sorry.
We approved, we accepted it, we have accepted it as our audit.
Correct, so we're accepting the presentation and the audit.
Yeah.
Yes,
Do I have a second?
sure, second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cable,
Yes.
Commissioner Heisler. Yes. Commissioner Jacobson,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner McHale.
Yes. Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance 24-25.10, the 2024. Tax levy. In ordinance levying taxes for the Crystal Lake Park District in Kern County, Illinois for 2024, providing a levy of $7,969,373.27 for the corporate and special revenue funds. Do I have a second?
I'll make a second.
Okay, roll call,
Like discussion.
discussion,
I usually like to discuss things before we get moving on it.
sure.
So we have the report from Tina regarding the new property. And I thought it was ambiguous, but I think we're okay. I think I'm bidding against myself sometimes. But I think it's more important to understand what we're doing than to have it go my way. I don't like the increase in tax. I think that's an issue, but so it was kind of ambiguous where it said we're okay, it's all reported, but to the extent it's not reported, we use last year's figures. And the only reason that we brought this up in the first place is because we're talking about a new property. So if we use last year's figures for the new property, it's zero, right? As opposed to, like, let's say they hadn't assessed the new development there at Maine, right? And we say, well, we're just gonna use last year's, so last year is gonna be as vacant property, right? But I think what they're saying is it has, all the townships have been completed.
At
Right?
this point, yes.
Yeah, so in the future, that kind of said it both, in the future, if they say. We use last year's, just know that you're missing out on the new property. Because last year's is gonna be as vacant, right?
Well,
That's the whole idea.
I'm thinking that the new property wouldn't, like, when it becomes value is when it would be considered new property. So
That's right.
if it wasn't ready for this year's taxes, then it would be ready for the following year.
It's gotta show up at some point.
Mhm.
It's gotta show us something. That's exactly, so if it was going to show up for 2024,
Mhm.
they just hadn't gotten to it yet. That's the issue, right? As the assessor assessed all the property in its township. So you have to be careful that if they say, we're going to use last year's, that it doesn't work for the new property component. So just briefly. We take all the current property from 2023 and we increase it by the CPI of 5%, whichever is less, or whatever we decide to increase it by. And then that gives us a tax rate, really divided by the dollar amount, right? And we apply that tax rate to the new property as well. So that's why we get more than 5%, because we're able to tax the new property. So again, there's two reasons to do it. One is because you can only levy so much in each fund, the millage in each fund. That really doesn't apply anymore because of the property tax extension limitation law, which is kind of overarching, right? So that purpose is really kind of ignore that, but the new property is important. So anyway, I think we're good. If we're not good, it's going my way.
Isn't that something that's happened every other year when you do something like this? It's like, and unless there was some discrepancy along the way where it was like a big difference that we overlooked. I can't, then you address it after the discrepancy.
No, you have to levy it.
That's how it's been done. It seems like I've been transparent all along. I don't understand why.
I'm not saying there's anything. I'm not saying we're doing anything wrong. I'm just saying we need. I like to have more understanding of what's happening. And so what's happening is you want to make sure when you're guessing on the new property. So we said we're going to go up 2.1 or 2.4, whatever it was for this year. So that takes care of all the current property, but the new developments, you want to make sure you tax them as well, right? I mean, theoretically, you have that authority.
Theoretically, we have that information from past practice, right?
We're talking about the information. So it's the information that we're talking
No,
about.
but from previous years.
That we eventually get all of the tax,
Yeah.
it all gets taxed.
Yeah,
Well,
The
but-
county's not gonna
no,
miss out on tax.
right.
No, you will miss out on tax. It's not the county, it's the individual entities that do the taxing. The county has its own levy. But if you miss it, if you miss the new property in the first year, it's gone, not gone. But
That
it just
first year-
absorbs the other tax base. You can only tax new property with your new rate in its first year of being assessed as new property.
So you want to be careful to make sure we capture as much as possible.
I don't want you to capture it, but I just want you to know that, you can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the whole point of when, if we go a little bit over what CPI is, up to the 5%. Without then having to do the truth in taxation, that's where that difference becomes part of what we're showing as the new property amount. So CPI this year is 3.4, but in our spreadsheet, it's a little bit more than that because we're including an amount to go toward that, new property.
That's precisely what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's determining what the new property figure is, so that you know how much above the CPI.
Right.
To go above.
And that's
to
what
capture
that-
the new property.
Right, that's
And
what that worksheet was that we
the
were looking at.
worksheet.
Yeah.
So, well, that's the worksheet and the information.
Mm.
Use the information from the county to put into the worksheet for that purpose.
Correct.
And I'm saying that the email from the county was a little ambiguous as to did we assess all the new property? Right?
Mm.
Or did we just use for the property that we didn't assess, use last year's value, which is gonna be as vacant property? Hopefully this helps a little bit.
I have something else I wanted to bring up, which doesn't affect our levy this year at all. It's just a discussion and maybe might affect how we go forward next year. When we set the tax rate, when we directed staff and approved them to go forward with the tax rate, none of us were expecting this huge amount of new growth this year. And we ended up taxing more than I think the board, we're bringing in more than I think the board thought we were going to bring in. So what if next year, instead of saying go for this rate plus new growth, what if we said 4.3 and work backwards from new growth to figure out what the tax rate is? I think we should have taxed less because the new growth was more, but it's after the fact. We didn't include that in the discussion.
I like that, but you know, we don't tax a rate. We
Well,
tax a dollar amount. and the
Okay,
county
I'm sorry if I
determines
used the
rate.
wrong words, but you know what I meant. I think we ended up taxing more than the board agreed on.
I think for us, it should be simple. What's the dollar amount that we need? And then just let that fall where it will. We know we can't get above the PTEL. But yeah, I
But
think
how do you direct staff to do that?
I think it's because we tax a dollar amount, I think it's really easy. We base it on need.
So we tell them the dollar amount and then they have to figure out what new growth is and then work backwards. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
What does other board member, do you understand what
Yeah,
I'm
I
saying?
just don't understand. It's like, okay, so if, let's say you overestimate this one year, you can make a correction the other direction if you had to.
Not with new property, you lose it if you don't get it in the first year. If you go
We would-
low,
Well, we
You
would
can't
tax
do that.
we would tax the new growth, but we would reduce the rate for it. We would reduce our tax rate, which would be for the already the non-new growth, right? So that would be a huge amount of work for them at this point. I'm not saying doing it right now. I'm saying next year, is there a way to say this far and no farther?
With the current, like with the timeline, given what it is. You know what I mean? Like getting that information
Mhm.
from the county,
Right.
How does that
I don't
affect how you
know
would?
how that works.
I think
Right.
it makes it more difficult that we say this is the percentage that we want to do instead of this is the dollar amount that we need. Right? If we just went with the dollar amount that we needed, we'd get to the percentage you're talking about.
But that doesn't answer the timeline question.
No, the county information typically isn't like, most of it doesn't come in until either late October or early November. So that's why we would normally have the tax levy on the November as the approval at the latest, you know, obviously we're doing it in December this year, but yeah, so I mean, it's just whenever the assessors get the information to the county,
So you're saying if we don't capture that, none of that could ever be retroactive?
not on the new property. Mm-mm.
But-
So the new property, that's why you go above,
So this is fundamentally, my way is much easier to cheer because I'm not worried about capturing new growth. I'm worried about levying what we need. And wherever that lands, right? So we don't say we're gonna do 2.1 or 2. We look at CPI and say, okay, CPI is 4, right? So let's levy 3.5, right? It all kind of gets messed up anyway with the new property and all that stuff.
Right.
If we just say, this is what we need and levy according to that, we're gonna, the tax rate is gonna be what it's gonna be based on our need. We don't have to worry about going backwards and doing these
I
changes.
would be so much more comfortable with that, but would that work for staff?
Yeah, and I mean, if we follow our capital replacement schedule, we'll max out every year. So that's where the decision of the board needs to come in, that. You know, what's our true
And
need?
that's the fight we should have,
It is.
right?
Right.
Yes.
right?
So I mean, I don't wanna speak for you, because you're the
No.
one that has to do it, but I think that, I mean, you're right, it's much easier than sitting here and dissecting all these scenarios that involve a percentage here and a percentage there. It's very tedious work for Tina to put all these things together, and then, you know, we continue to have the discussions even after
Right.
the decision.
And we see our bottom line increase by $4 million a year, right? And that's part of it. Do we really have, and every year we're budgeting huge amounts and we're not able to even spend it. So do we
No, that's
really
not
need it?
true. The last 2 years, we've been spending the money.
We're
I think
$4 million
That's
better this year than
No,
last year.
no, right, but we took in money for the maintenance garage, we took in money.
No,
for-
that maintenance garage money doesn't count because there's a liability associated with that. That's borrowed. We actually owe more than we took in. So that actually works. the
Well,
other way.
that one I don't think the only
That's
expense
not
on
in-
that, it's just.
It's an extra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually next.
That's
No, I'm talking about balance sheet.
Yeah.
It's a balance sheet liability, regardless of when it has to pay.
Right.
So I'm sorry, that almost 4 million is our bottom line, our balance sheet. So that doesn't count at all, except it actually makes it even worse because there's interest on it. Right? We took in whatever, 5 mil, we're gonna pay back more than 5 million. So we got a liability more than what was in.
So I would just say, let's table this discussion and say next year when we come to setting the tax rate, let's remember to talk about how to make sure we're taxing what we need and not ending up taxing more than,
So Tina, would that give you enough time to kind of mentally reframe a kind of a different way of looking at it slightly, or?
Well, if we discuss it maybe in either September, October of what direction we're looking toward going, that would help. Typically, I mean, whatever CPI is like the max that you could go for the capped properties, but then anything between what CPI is and 5% would be what we would do for the new growth. And then based on what our needs are with our capital projects, we have millions of dollars in capital projects that we need to do,
Get a line?
but yeah, so.
And we also have had the value engineer out, like Mickey's son. I mean, how much did we take off that project just to get the bare bones and because we couldn't afford it?
that's okay. We need to build what we can afford, and it doesn't mean we need to tax more to build. We need to build maybe less and spend less.
Right.
We don't tax as much as we can to build as much as we can. That's not fair.
But,
I mean,
but it's
John
not,
isn't building, that's maintaining.
yeah, but it's not just building, it is maintaining, and we
Yeah.
said, we saw the big long list of projects that could be done.
Mhm.
I think this is a valuable discussion. I like the simplicity of a dollar amount versus vague percentages. And I think staff just needs to be prepared to have those dollar amount figures
Yeah, we
ready
have-
to make it a simple board discussion.
We have 8 months. to figure it out.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah,
give them time
right,
to kind of
right.
readjust to the,
Yeah.
way of looking at it.
Well, and this tax levy is going toward the 25 to 26 budget, which we are just projecting at this point. So, other than using our capital plan and those other, comprehensive master plan that we have developed, that's kind of what helps us to determine what those expenses are, but they're still projected, so
sure,
they're not exact science, so.
okay, so a motion was on the table, do I have to read that again? No. All right,
There was a motion.
Right,
We had a
prior
second.
to when Eric said he wanted.
yeah, no,
discussion,
I forgot
I
the
had
discussion,
a second.
so that was definitely called for. So, all right, we had the second, roll call please.
Commissioner Herzler?
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Cagle?
yes.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes. Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance 24.25.11 employee policy manual revisions to policy 7.01 use of park district facilities and recreation programs as presented. Do we have a second
Also,
discussion?
I am uncomfortable with a large amount of this proposed policy, changes to the policy, because it feels like we're dipping our hand in the cookie jar as much as we can in some ways. We have limitations on what benefits employees and board members can use for some things with the 30-day, you can't RSVP for this. But other things like summer camp and before and after day school, we're like, take whatever you want. And it doesn't make sense to me because those programs sell out to the public. And we are here to serve the public, that's what we're here for. If we changed the policy so that everything had you may not get it for free more than 30, you have to wait at least 30 days before you RSVP, so the public had first opportunity to take advantage of our programs, I'd be way more comfortable with it. And I would even be more comfortable if we had a limit of $500 a year benefits for this.
we discussed this in the meeting that I missed.
No,
No, not yet.
So how
No.
about, well, I'll make a motion to table this. I hope we'll take off the table for the next committee meeting, hang on the agenda, maybe whole meeting.
We can, but to address your concerns, We don't have waiting lists for camps. We take in all the waiting lists for camps, and we take in all the waiting lists for ET. So for the childcare programs, it's not an issue. We're not taking spaces away from
I
them.
think it was my motion to table, so I take precedence, right?
I want to answer the question.
I would actually second Eric's motion to table it to a committee in the whole meeting.
I'm not saying I'm against it,
Pardon?
I'm not saying I'm against it, but I think it's something we should talk about.
Okay,
Because we didn't have a December committee meeting, that's why we put it on the agenda tonight to talk about, but if you want to put it off, we can just continue to put it off.
all in favor?
But we don't have a committee of the whole in January.
No, so it's gonna go till February.
Yeah,
Kurt, what's your idea about that?
Kurt would like to see this passed as soon as possible.
Just for me, because and Jason's had to hear me about this policy for years, ever since what we're proposing is going back to what it was before. So each month that this gets delayed, it personally costs me about $500. And there's other staff members that don't put their kids in our programs purely because they can't afford it or they're waiting on the outcome of tonight. We talked about doing it in November. We didn't put it in November. We have it tonight. So it's just one of those where it's like, it's a little more personal for me. So I'll just leave it at that. And
Portions of this that may not be objectionable to you, that work for you guys, and
no, because Kurt is looking at the daycare probably. And because it used to be a policy isn't enough of a rationale to why this is a sound policy now. It should be taken apart and looked at.
Okay, do I need to do something to like reopen this for discussion?
Well, we didn't vote on Eric's motion.
No.
motion, you can take precedence as it's supposed to be. It won't be the first time a motion might get passed.
That's not what the issue is, that's not what the issue is. But we either want to have the discussion or we're moving it somewhere else.
Well, I'm just wondering if it's
So
just a simple, little bit more of a discussion, if we could get it passed.
I'm fine with having the discussion tonight. I think that was jumping the gun
Especially
to
since we-
move it somewhere else.
Well, I don't want to
We've
not pass.
we've had this language for a while. I think it's fine to have this discussion tonight and work something out. I think it's
I'll withdraw
valid.
my motion.
Pardon?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay,
Okay.
there you go. So we can
Can't we
talk
just
about
see
it.
how it goes and then critique it? If there is an issue, can't we just, I think it's fine, I get your point, Patty, but can't we just? and you said-
Well, I think that to preface what Kathy's concerns are, staff will never trump the public. And that's why for some of these things, we have those 30-day windows because. You know, if we let staff book whenever, you know, as far as wanted to for an event at Main Beach, the public would never get to use it, and now we're not making money. So there's been a lot of thought to going into how all these different scenarios work. And we feel it's pretty equitable across the board for everybody. Certainly, if someone's gonna use, you know, someone that uses the ET program compared to someone that's just taking an art class, sure, there's more value to that, but that's individual decisions. Everyone still has the opportunity to take advantage of everything.
Do you know what the net effect is?
I'd say at this point fairly minimal because there's not a lot of staff using it. I mean, under the current policy, like Kurt said, there's a lot of staff not using it because it's not affordable for some
No,
staff.
no, if we were to pass this policy, do we have an estimate of the net effect?
Was it a problem back in 2019? No.
Well, but we
You know-
never asked, is it a problem in 2019? I know we sell out some camps, I know we sell out some spots.
And if situations like that were to occur in the policy, it states that staff then have to either pay for the program or go on a wait list. So that's covered in here. So that's taken care of if those scenarios come up. Is it a financial burden? No, it's not a financial burden with the programs because again, it outlines in here that if those situations, so a staff person can't be used to reach the minimum of a program. If they are, they have to pay for it. So there'll never be cost to the district from that perspective. For field trips for camp, staff's kids have to pay for those field trips because that is an additional cost. So,
So in the past, if we had a sold out camp with staff member or board member's child in that camp, do we then charge them for it?
We give them the option to either pay or to get on a waiver.
Did we
Or move to an
monitor
open
it
section.
that much?
I'm sorry?
We monitor it that much?
When wait lists come up, it's a big deal because we gotta make sure we, one, try to get as many people in as we can. And that's something that'll be flagged, that, okay, there's a staff person in there, we have to go give them the option.
I think this is something that we were trying really hard to, in 2019, when these changes were made, to like implement and be by the book. And when you look through the comparables, you can see that other districts are offering similar things. They never really followed that. It was, I think the intent of this policy was concerning board members and board member use.
That's where this whole
Not,
thing
not
started.
like, I'm not here in the Perk District, not us necessarily, but from like a legislative standpoint. And so, to me, our staff were greatly affected by that, and if there's something that we can do to rectify that, and something that we can do to increase morale, increase staff retention, you know, give something like this to the, why would we not want to do that if it's not going to affect the public?
Have a negative net benefit.
Why would we not want to
Well, I mean, it
do
does
that?
have a
And the cost-
negative, it does, but it does have a negative effect on the financial, but I'm trying to figure it out here that it's minimal because we're not bumping, right?
Right, and that's something what we can do is we can put together a report. When Kurt does the seasonal reports, we could also put together a section in there that says how many staff have used programs and what the value of that would be. But we would never operate a program where it's costing the park district money because staff are in that program.
I'm not sure that the policy conveys that.
We can add a very simple disclaimer in there. At the
That would be-
beginning of it.
That would be great.
Okay, we can add a sentence in the first paragraph stating that.
And that the public will never have secondary access, you know,
To unpaid.
correct? That would give me a lot more confidence in it.
That's a simple fix.
And the goal is to provide a net benefit for the staff without having that negative benefit from how it affects the public.
Absolutely, and I think it's easily achievable. And like Jason said, let's do it, and it's something that can always be reviewed.
Yeah.
You know,
So are you gonna amend her motion?
I would like to amend your motion, Sarah, to include language in the first paragraph to make it clear
That staff cannot bump up any future.
and that
Would,
public has first access, priority access.
well, over non-paying staff.
Correct, thank you.
I'll second.
okay, all in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay. Cool,
Thank you.
moving on to whatever we're just talking, right? About three
So-
property donation.
Really, Scott was working with them today, so I'll turn it over to Scott.
So after the last meeting, so you recall, I was coughing really badly and up with pneumonia and was out for a while. And we had a call scheduled with these folks. I had to cancel due to a family medical matter that came up half hour before. So I did speak with them, I think all on the same page for the donation. I think it's some clarification about some changes of what we're thinking. They've explained it, that there's a couple things that didn't come to change. And I think we're in agreement, so we'll be ready to go here. They're talking about breaking ground in May of this next year, so it should be good to go. I just didn't get enough time and I apologize for that.
Okay. I hope you're feeling better.
I am better. Yes, I'm not sick, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I believe those are your last words, your exact words.
I thought I had a cold and I really went to bed the day after your meeting, so.
Glad you're feeling better.
Yeah.
So, I'm good.
And then Shamrock, we're trying to schedule a meeting, to actually sit down with the owners of the property next door and their attorney, so we can kind of just hash this all out and get it done as opposed to more up and back with them, so. I emailed them after the last meeting, I'm still waiting to hear back, so. That's where we are with that situation.
Okay. Discussion items. Lake State Beach Association License Agreement.
So I don't know if everyone wants me to rehash what I wrote in the memo, because it's a little lengthy, but, Lake State Beach Association, when the park district passed your ordinance back in 2019, this association on the lake, never responded to requests to enter into a license agreement. And after several attempts, the board said, well, we've tried, and something happens, then we'll deal with it at that point. So here we are. A neighbor of this association complained to the park district about this group placing trying to place another mooring or boat at their pier. At their association beach or marina, and they knew what our ordinance was, and that's why they called to complain about, because they didn't like it because it was coming too far out into the lake, and they wanted to know the process. So I shared with them what the process was, and that they had not had a license agreement. In the meantime, this association was dealing with that situation, as well as this person that was trying to put on a boat on the lake was a new member or a new property owner. They bought a home over there, and they have rights to that marina. And we're told, from what the associations told me, that their realtor told them you can put a boat out there anytime, doesn't matter. But the association actually has rules that if you're, just like any marina, you get on a wait list if all the slips are filled, and all of their slips were filled. So the association reached out to me to see if there was anything we could do about it, and I said, no, that's for your association to deal with, but you don't have a license agreement with us, and that's part of the issue. We can get that solved, because what you have out there would be based on what you had out there in 2019, which we know. And that's what they wanted to stay with. So the member of the association I was dealing with wanted to enter into the license agreement. Long story short, I went to a meeting with about 30 to 40 of their members and explained how this all worked, and was excused after I answered several questions. And they decided not to do it because there's some people within that association that feel the park district can't enforce the ordinance that we have in place to allow private property on the park district property. So
That's their opinion.
correct, that's their opinion, and that's the stance they've taken. But we're at a point where we do need to address it. I threw out 3 suggestions on things we could potentially do. So I wanted to have the discussion.
Why do we need to address it? Because, as if they're forcing our hand to address it?
Yes,
Well, how are they forcing our hand to address it?
because they said we're not gonna do it, and the ordinance says that they either have to have their marina approved by us annually or enter into a license agreement that lasts for 9 years.
So this association is saying basically, we don't want this person to do what they're doing. So Park District, get involved here so we can, so back us up on this.
Well, and I told them,
Bad entry into this.
That's
and I told them,
That's exactly that, sure.
But
well, and that's
we
what
don't
I
have to
told,
play that game.
and that's what I
That's the
told them.
game we're being invited to.
Well, we don't have to do
I
that.
understand.
This is from the policy
I understand,
standpoint.
this wouldn't have come up.
Well, and so it's come up, so we have to deal with it.
We don't have. to. Absolutely no.
So Eric, what would happen if we didn't deal with it, play it out?
They'll manage their dispute between themselves. Right?
How do we
We
manage?
can jump in if we want to at some point. But we don't need to jump in and start issuing fines to people. Or saying we're completely out of it. Because these people are triggering us. I think that's a bad way.
I think that's a difficult way to enter into it. I agree with you, but I think that all the other associations on the lake, have they entered into this agreement?
Yeah, they did.
Correct.
They all did it immediately.
Okay, and this one just isn't,
Right.
and now there's an issue. Regardless of the issue,
You guys want to?
we should get
You
them.
guys want to get into this fight? I promise you, this is your entry. this is getting right back into it. I assure you. And I'll be on the side of the folks that say, you can't enforce it. And that'll be the fight. If you want this fight, go for it. But to get into it, because these people, when things are going well, I think it's ridiculous.
But I thought the first initial thing is this association, somebody put a mooring in. Isn't that the start? Wasn't that the start?
Yeah,
They put in a mooring.
I mean, the start was back when they
I
refused
can
to
tell you
sign
what
the
the start
agreement.
is, because I know a little bit about it, right? They had an easement that the prior owner got with this association. And the current people will say, hey, you're new here, you can't use this unless we let you in. And they said, but we've got an easement of record with the county recorder, right? And, you know, they should either complain to the title company or to the, to the association, but their right is as good as the other folks' right. So there's an issue here with this group that I think they need to settle. But we don't need to go right now, I don't think, and say, so there's a decision has to be made, right? Do we say that we can enforce people having docks on the lake? Because if it applies to these guys, it applies to every single person on the lake,
Mhm.
right?
And I think according to our policy, and Scott, you gotta tell me, would you say that, yes, we have the legal right to enforce this?
Scott doesn't know that. Nobody knows that. I'm telling you, he can take your side, make the argument, but there's argument on the other side. There was a declaration years ago that the Park District owned majority of the lake bottom. There was never a declaration of what that means, and that's the issue that's been hanging over this forever.
Okay,
And I
but Sarah
suggest-
asked Scott a question.
I understand that. I'm
So
trying to
let's let
save
Scott
Scott from.
answer.
So,
We got a change in board going, and I don't want him to
yeah,
step on it.
so the cases that come down, the most recent case on this gives a property owner the right to exclude others from the case. You've got it, I'm sure.
It's whether we have riparian rights or not.
Right, and so the Park District actually owns that part of it. And the question is, how much can you expand that right? And that's where the issue has come with this situation is these folks have expanded from that little bitty area out down North Shore. And you actually own one of the lots in that subdivision in the original platted area, and you have a say, and no one's ever asked the Park District to vote on it. So, to my knowledge, and I think they're all surprised to know that the Park District owns one of those lots that has a right to be there. So what these guys have done on their own is to expand the association, and then the question is, how far can they go? And that's why the neighbors complained, is because they were having a hard time getting their boat in and out because they were so close and they kept sticking boats out there.
So what's happened over the years is that this is an issue that the city and the village could regulate because they have complete authority of the entirety, right? But the Park District's kind of always got in the way of that and saying, hey, it's our lake. So the city's like, I don't want to step on your shoes, and the village, maybe I don't want to step on your shoes. But the fact of the matter is, these anti-funneling ordinances, what we're talking about, are usually for the municipalities to be in. And if we can say, hey, listen, we don't want to be involved in this, and we can't take the action that we don't want to be involved. But I think the right thing to do first is you talk to the city and talk to the village. If we're gonna say we're only ecology, we want to make sure that the city and the village get in right away with anti-funneling ordinances. So that so this isn't legal for them to do this, right? They can't expand the number of slips. So if we can get the city and the village on board to enact anti-funneling ordinances, then we can come back and say, we don't need to be here for that. Because there's already regulation, and in fact, there's no doubt that the city and the village have authority. There is doubt that the Park District does, and that's where the fight will be. We don't
Where
need to
there
fight.
is no doubt is that there needs to be some anti-funneling thing in place.
Absolutely.
And at the moment, we are the only ones with that in place. And when we put this ordinance through, we put it through in our best interest to help preserve and protect people's right of access and kind of controlled growth on the lake so that the lake remained healthy and
I'm all in favor of the purpose of it. I just don't think it's our place to do it.
I
So I think
understand
where
that.
the initial, to go back to what Scott was talking about, where the Park District owns a lot in that grove properties that have access to this beach or marina area. And as Scott mentioned, there's others that are using it. And so to your point, Eric, that's where the fight needs to take place. Is only the people that should be, that are deeded to use that should be the ones using it. So that's
Yes,
that are.
but if you tell them that they can't do this, you can tell me that I can't do it, you can tell Jason he can't do it, you can tell Linda, you can tell everybody else in the lake. If you say this to these folks, you said it to everybody. That you can't put your dock out on the lake unless you get a license from the park district. Every single property owner on the lake, you're saying we can say this.
Every HOA already signed it.
Just,
I'm not an HOA.
right, the private property owner, the people that own their own lots on the lake, but it's the HOAs. And the purpose behind it was to avoid the funneling.
I know what the purpose is, but what you're saying here is it's our lake and we can tell you what to do with it. And that's a huge fight.
I think we're telling them it's our lake bed and we're telling them what they can put on the lake.
And the argument that I would make is you've got the right to mine and gravel, is what you've got there. Right?
Okay, let's stop for a
There's
second.
no deed that says that.
No, but you got the right to lake bottom, you got it originally from a mining company.
But
But you can mine ice too, but I think that's
Excuse me,
the argument.
Scott, what happens if the park district doesn't do anything?
and it's gonna, the neighbor's gonna keep complaining. These guys are gonna keep fighting.
And is it like a patent thing where if you don't protect your patent, you effectively, let it go?
No.
So our ordinance will be enforceable down the line, should we choose to do it if we don't fight this one?
Correct.
Can any random person then come in and install a mooring, right? Isn't that kind of what happened here?
That's the question. Can they or can they not
So-
based on our authority?
Don't you think we should have something in place and we should enforce it? Right?
You do know what? It's like starting a hellfire.
Yeah,
Well,
your next meeting will be huge.
But the other, what's the option, the other option?
Right, it's.
Do nothing
We have
and
no choice.
literally anybody, I live on the very north side of freaking Crystal Lake, could come in and just
No,
put a
no,
mooring
no,
in.
no, you can't, because you're not within the cloud subdivision. And you're not in the CCAPOA.
Okay, fine,
Yes.
somebody else.
Well, you have
Right?
to- you have
Like,
to be
it
there.
could just be like uncontrolled moorings
no,
everywhere.
no,
Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, you're not understanding the process, right? You have to own property in the lake, so it's to be. You don't own property in the lake, and you're not a member of the association.
Okay, wait. So
But what-
every single person who has a mooring on that lake owns property on the lake right now.
Or they're part of an HOA,
Yes.
allegedly. But if someone gains access to the lake, if there's nothing that regulates someone just coming through a boat launch, whether it's ours or someone else's, to put a mooring out there and moor the boat, who's to tell them you can't do that?
I would love it.
That's
That's anti-funneling words. I understand it really well.
I
Right.
do too, and I get it, and I know that the city, well, I shouldn't say
Here's the-
now, but past the city and the village want nothing to do with that.
They don't want anything to do with it because they don't want to step on our toes. I talked to Aaron Shepley about this years ago. I was like, I don't want to go in there, right? You know, but if it's because the park district took this stance of it's our lake, right? But if we said to the city and the village, we need an anti-funneling ordinance. We need you both to have an anti-funneling ordinance because we don't have to worry about whether ours is enforceable. We know yours is. You have general police powers. If we could have that conversation with the city and the village, that's the way to do it because the purpose of it is good. Right? So.
Scott?
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Last time their attorney told them not to do it.
Were we, city
City.
of Crystal Lake?
That's right. They always tell them not to. I don't know if the attorney told them not
The
to.
attorney did.
What was it? For what reason?
They don't wanna get involved in a lake war,
That-
that's
that-
exactly why.
Yeah.
They're asking us, it sounds like, I'm sorry, it sounds like they're asking. They don't wanna be involved, because the park district, we have. The property over there and stuff that they're like, let's leave it on.
I mean, it's new leadership there, we can ask the
We
question.
should say, you have our blessing. In fact, we want you to do it, right? Instead of it's our lake, don't.
I would
stay
say that's
away.
what we're saying, it's our.
It has been in the past. It has been kind of
Current
stay out of it, right? But
current board. That's
current,
not what's
let's
happening.
say current board thinks that you should have it. Right? We think you both should have it. You cover the entire jurisdiction of the lake and it's needed. And we don't want to worry about whether ours is enforceable, because if we try to do it, there's a war. Because again, you're telling me something I can't do as a park district. And it's something that if the city told me I couldn't do, that's normal. That happens on lakes all over the place.
So
Right?
Eric, in full disclosure, are you the lawyer for the person who's having this
No.
problem?
No.
Okay, thank you. I had heard that.
No,
insinuated.
I've discussed it, but I've been engaged.
All
But
right.
this position has been my position for a long time. So
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so, I'm not necessarily in favor of what they're doing. But I don't think that the park district is the one to say you can't do it. In fact, in this case, I don't think the homeowner association can really say to them, or they have to say it to others too, and they don't want to do that. I don't want to get into this fight. If you guys want to get into it, let's do it the right way. And let's reach out to the city and the village to say, hey, let's get anti-funneling ordinances in place. Right? You guys do it, because we know yours are enforced. Right? Maybe ours are, maybe they're not, but theirs are. Absolutely, and it doesn't affect my property.
Jason, how do you feel about that?
The new leadership team over there, I don't mind asking the question. The last time I met with the old leadership team was that their exact words is, we want absolutely nothing to do with the lake. But we can certainly ask the question again.
I wouldn't mind stepping out of the pickle, I wouldn't mind having the city and the village take it on as long as the lake, the best interest of the lake and lake owners is represented. I would be fine with it not being on a baby.
If you can sell that, I'll tell you what, you're gonna advance the ball greatly, for everybody.
Sarah?
It doesn't hurt our position. We can still say that we have this right, but to have the village and the city do it, it takes care of it.
Well, I
and
think
there's
if,
no fight.
if it goes to them, we just strictly say, we'll just be involved with Lakeland College. You got a problem with someone's career placement, call the city. You got a problem with
We
someone
have
worrying
to give
about.
that up. It's fine if we want to, but we don't have to.
And I don't think we all three need
We're
to.
not gonna do it, but I'm saying you don't have to worsen your position by, and I would love if you worsen, if you participate worsen your position on this, but I'm not saying you have to do it, right? You just get the city and the village to take care of what you think is a problem, because it does solve it. No question asked.
But according to Scott,
There's no worry.
they're not necessarily interested in doing that.
Well, that's
But
more of
we
a
haven't asked
selling
with the
thing,
change
right?
in leadership.
Well, I mean, I suppose you could try,
You can ask them.
yeah.
So let's,
Well, I think if you
Sarah,
can't do
where are
it,
you with
that's
this?
something that needs to be worked on.
I think it's fine to ask them and to come back and tell us what they say.
Yeah.
But I think,
Or you might wanna wait till the board changes to do it, till this board changes to do it.
no, let's do it. And I think it's important to get our legal counsel's input on this every step of the way.
Better resources for this, we shouldn't be dealing with this, honestly. This is kind of ridiculous.
It's building.
but somebody has to deal with it. At the end of the day, somebody has to
You're
deal with
absolutely
it.
right,
They have a building
They
department,
should.
that's what they do.
So. We
They'd have to issue
agreed to
permits.
direct staff to ask.
Right.
Do you have a clear idea of what you're asking?
Yeah, city would be interested in.
Not just the city, it's.
The city and Lakewood, if they would be
Right.
interested in developing the funneling ordinance and that anti-funneling ordinance in order to manage that part of the lake.
And we don't want to have. that. Or worry about whether there's gonna be a fight as to whether we have to do that. We know they have. to.
Okay, so. Go have that conversation. And then let us know how that goes. And I mean, a lot of things have changed with the leadership change over there, so we'll see. And then we'll go from there.
I will be meeting with them soon as possible. Before back. Thank you.
All right. Reports to the board.
I don't have anything.
Three quick things, holiday party is tomorrow, if anyone's interested, 5 to 8 p.m. I think everyone has gotten invitations, I didn't see that RSVP list, so I don't know who's coming or not. hopefully we'll see everyone there. We closed on the maintenance facility, on the fifth, and everything went smoothly, a very good process, thanks to Scott and Eric. From the Parks Department, so we're, next step is to engage an architect to start working on the design, so. If anyone wants a tour,
Yeah, can you invite the board for a tour?
yeah, we could send out some dates and times if
Yeah.
people are interested, cool, so. And happy holidays, it's the end of the year. So. Tina?
Nothing other than what was written in the report. So thank you for acceptance of the audit. And happy holidays. Any questions?
Sure.
We ended the year with, or we're ending the year still with a bang. Our Luminaria last weekend had over 2,000 people at it, so that was fantastic. Our teas this weekend at the Colonel Palmer House are sold out. And then our theater production next week for Shrek already has sold several hundred tickets. So it's going to be a great end to the year. And yeah, that's about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, our winter spring guide is out, went live digital Tuesday morning. Residents in 6012 and 14 should be receiving their guide today or any day now. The popular annual financial report is due to go to the post office December 18th. That's the 8-page print document, and the camp guide will be digital only. Staff are working on inputting camps for that, and that'll go live February 10th. And then right behind that will be the summer guide. In our board report included the report regarding adjusting the page count of our brochure guide should we take out advertising. So if there's any questions about that, I'm here to answer that.
I actually looked at it and I didn't understand what the difference in cost would be, honestly, Jenny.
Was it 47 was the cost of print, 17 is the cost of postage, and we get advertising revenue of about 22. So if we think that by doing it online, we're gonna lose all the advertising revenue, the net cost is like 38,000.
I guess I was looking at it issue by issue. So adjusting the page count, if for example, we look at the fall guide, the cost to print, the 84-page document is 14,500. If we took out potentially 8 pages of extra, which would account for quarter-page ads, half-page ads, things like that, the price only drops down by like $1,190. So take out eight pages. We have strictly programs and information about the park. Just
talking about the question of doing it online or by mail, printing, and so it was, we were asking for the printing cost, which is like the new bid's like 47,000, right?
Roughly.
right, yeah,
Okay, and
for
then
3
and
seasons.
that costs us 17 to mail it, right? So 64,
Mhm.
and then we get, was it 22,000 in
Of ad revenue,
Right.
yeah. Let's see.
More than that, was it more than that?
24, down to about 25,000.
The 40, so I don't know, it's 40,000-ish. If we thought we're gonna lose all the ad revenue to send out brochures.
We can still do ads in online, but the issue with whether we go to.
I'm
print or
I'm just saying, let's
online-
just assume we can't, we get no ad revenue. It's still $40,000 expense, right? To the extent we can recapture some of the ad revenue, it just gets better. It's not-
Right. But as far as doing online and print, we keep hearing from the community, they still want to print a
Yeah,
brochure, and that's why we're doing it.
Personally, I would.
Print is more popular than ever.
I wasn't trying to get to this decision yet, I was just trying to get to the
Yeah.
fundamentals of it, right?
I guess my understanding of what we wanted from the information is if we just took away advertising, what we would save in printing and.
That's exactly what I asked. Thank you.
Okay.
I didn't understand the way you laid it out,
Okay.
what it was, but now I get it. Thank you.
Okay,
All right, I'm sorry, I was thinking, I was considering if we stop printing.
And I don't even know that we would even
No.
enter that
Industry
discussion.
standards show like a much better return from a print.
Yeah.
I just want to know what that was costing.
We wouldn't even truly know the effects of numbers lost, you
Right.
know, for.
Way to go is still print and have it readily available at various locations so people could go and still get the hard copy if they want.
Print is like overwhelmingly effective.
Yeah.
We did electronic during COVID and that was effective because things were changing daily, so it didn't make sense to
Sure.
print something that was basically
Right.
Well,
irrelevant.
everybody was doing that.
Right, some places stayed with it and they just send a postcard out notifying people that
Right.
it's available, but. In a lot of the research Jenny's done, and even in the survey that we did for the master plan showed that people still want us to receive the free brochure.
Yep.
Anything else, Jen?
We're looking into
Nope,
that.
that's it.
Eric?
Happy holidays.
Amy?
So I'm passing around the aerial from last week at the Hollywood site, which is Lakewood Meadows. And progress is coming along. The ComEd came surprised us today and we installed the transformer. It's not hooked up yet, so we don't have electrical power, but it's soon. And we will be shutting down the site after next week. The construction trailer is going away and stuff, so we're closed for winter. As it's too cold really to do much, but they've got the building framed up with the block material, so that's very exciting. Whipple Park Mickey Sun, they started doing demo on Monday. They were not out today because of the cold, but they were out yesterday, and they will continue this week and then next week. We received that we had to break the project into 2 phases because of the stormwater questions that the city and county had. So phase 1 was approved and we're waiting. We expect phase 2 of the permit process, which includes most of the stormwater piece of it, to be approved in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're hoping. So that, you know, so they can only demo up to a certain point and do work up to a certain point. Because of the phase 1, phase 2 of the permit process.
So is that county and city permits that we're waiting for stormwater?
It's county review and then it goes to the city and the city verifies it.
Okay.
Yeah. So not much, I mean, the city, the Burke Engineering is reviewing it all.
What's the 2 block?
The black things? One's
Pickleball.
pickleball and basketball.
And the other one's basketball, and we have fencing on 3 sides of the pickleball reinstalled.
They haven't color coded them yet, that's why they're hard to identify.
So how
And
many
all
football
those-
players total?
Oh, side note, I'm having a community meeting in
It's going
January
pretty good.
for Woods Creek Park. And Jason mentioned the 88.
Yes, we're gonna have a community input meeting at the end of January for the ADA transition plan revision, so that's part of the process is to have a community input meeting. We'll be inviting all of the Crystal Lake residents who are participants at NISRA, along with getting the information out to everybody in the community that would like to contribute to the process, so that'll be the last step before the final report is put together.
Anything else? Anything from the board?
Nope, I do have a question as usual. Jason, you were gonna go and talk to Nisra and see about services for like elders with dementia and things like that. Do you remember?
Yes, and I had the conversation and they don't have a lot of capacity to do work. It's kind of more of a specialty type of situation as far as. They're not equipped to manage a lot of that type of stuff.
And they're planning to grow and to do it.
I can certainly push the initiative.
I think they seem like the group to do it. And I think our community needs more of it, and could you please bring it up on a continual ongoing basis till they're really sick of hearing it?
Welcome to,
Thank you.
certainly.
Anything else?
I actually just thought of something, that piece of property that we own. Refresh my memory, who maintains it?
We do.
We own it. Where's it located?
It's a lot, it's on the east side, I'm sorry, yeah. The east side of all those homes, it's the furthest lot east, it's just a grass lot.
The city gave an easement for the drainage.
Yeah, no, there's a lot
It's
there.
literally, it's like the size of this room.
Yeah, it's when you first come down North Shore, we're getting to that road, which I.
Sharon Rappling, there's.
Take a left.
When you get to the left there, there's a lot. that's
On the
out
right
there.
side or left side?
Left side.
Left side, okay. So the right side is where the city,
And then you've got the outlet, and then you've got, the cut through, but it's on the other side. So-
The city's wanted that property from us because when they're doing work there, it'd be a place for them to park their equipment and stage and things like that.
on that piece?
The city owns the drainage
So we're adjacent to that, right?
across the street.
Across the street, straight
Just west of.
whatever, 100 feet. Maybe it'd be.
We could give them the property.
I'm gonna
exchange
say
for
we
them
could give it to
enforcing
them
that.
and then.
Here, the association, yeah.
Let them be a part of it.
There was a time where they asked for it,
We just never,
and then we told them, well. I
we
thought,
we're trying to put some other
oh, you're
things,
trying to.
You wanted to curl down and all, but
and it's kind of just. Gone idle.
And then they go,
Do we want it?
do we even, why do we have it?
Do we want it?
No,
No,
the
a lot.
Just.
No, it's one thing we could take off the list of our contractual mowing.
Well, no, but Jason's point is, is that something that would benefit the city?
They've, I would
That
think so
we're-
because they've asked for it, which
that
tells
we're
me they have a
able-
need for it.
To,
I don't know that it's
Just
gonna
making an
drum up
exchange,
a,
it's just
an
right.
anti-funneling ordinance, but.
Well,
It's certainly some idea. with it.
Parlay is-
Favor getting rid of little easy bitty
Yeah.
shops.
I mean,
Tiny.
okay, so are we saying that we're giving Jason the authority to bring that lot up in these conversations with the city and with Lakewood?
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a. Honestly.
Yeah, the ordinance, the ordinance
That
authorized.
what they,
Sure.
Yeah, we have authorized
If it
before,
accomplishes
so
the
yeah.
goal.
okay to just bring it up,
Absolutely.
okay.
Might be oil.
Yeah, right.
Okay, anything else from the board? No, all right, I'm making a motion to adjourn the meeting, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I-
Any opposed?